Monster Mike here with Bronco Garage, and today I'm going to show you how to install this MS2020 shock from James Duff without breaking your back. So James Duff came out with this new shock called the MS2020, and that's part of the Midnight series product line that they have. And this shock is really cool because it is actually specifically designed for a Bronco. Now the company that makes these is Eibach, which is all American made. But when they first came out, Eibach ships them to James Duff fully extended. So James Duff had to actually come up with their own shock compression machine. So for a while, in order to install these, you had to reference the video that I made where you would have to drop your suspension and then use a floor jack, and it was kind of a pain. So it's really great because now they have this parachute cord that actually binds the shock, but it does two things. One, it keeps the shock from unbinding when it's in shipping, but then you take that binding off and there's a secondary string here, and that helps you kind of pull a little bit out at a time so you can install this exactly to the height that your Bronco is at. Now this here is a stud eye mount, which would work for your factory tower in the front, but you can also use a eye-to-eye shock, which would be used for like the tower that James Duff offers, or for the rear of the Bronco. Let's go ahead and get this installed. Now you'll notice I put the wax covering back on the decal. That way it doesn't get damaged as you're installing the shock. All right, so before we install the shock, there's the first binding that needs to be removed. It's actually in the way right here. So if it's loose, not under pressure, that's good. That means that the binding that we're actually gonna use is doing all the work. So get this out of the way. And then of course you're gonna have to remove the hardware at the top in order to install the shock. So we're gonna take this hardware out, and you wanna keep the bottom bushing and washer in place. And then you wanna go ahead and install the top. Now just remember, you can reuse the hardware you already have for the bottom, but if you need new hardware, you can choose that when you purchase your shocks. So just put it in like that. Notice how it's a little short, that's what you're looking for. Of course, we're gonna spin it around so the James Duff is facing out. Poly bushing, then the cup washer, and then the nylock nut in place. Install those. Now that I've got the stud mounted in the shock tower, next thing I want to do is align the bottom with the lower mount on the arm and get ready to pull this string. So with tension on the string right here, pulling down on it like this prevents the shock from extending. So I'm just going to go ahead and slip it into place. And then I'm going to be real careful and kind of watch here as I've got the bolt in my hand. I'm going to loosen up on this string a little bit, and it allows the shaft to come down into the radius arm shock mount. Typically getting the first one on is the biggest challenge. From there, so I like to just use this as like a fulcrum and some leverage. All right, so once you've got the bolt in both sides, then you can take the string and you can remove it from the shock. Tighten it down here. Don't over tighten it. You don't need to collapse these bushings. You just need them to be preloaded. You can also do the same here. Just preload the bushings. Let them move and flex. That's what they're designed to do. So the suspension can articulate. You don't want to bind things up. Then after you get them tightened up, my favorite part, pull the sticker off. You do not install it with the boot up. Make sure that the boot is facing down. The reason for this is it keeps all the elements, the dirt and the crud, off of the wiper seal that is where the shaft goes into the body of the shock. So this allows all that sediment and moisture to just basically just keep off there. And you'll notice down here, there's actually 4 little holes that allow anything that gets trapped in there to wash itself out. The last thing you need to do here is just make sure that you clip the boot into this little edge down here. You just got to work it in, just one little bit at a time. So that wraps it up for your MS2020 James Duff shock install. Definitely not going to be breaking your back on this one now that everything is so much easier, and you get to do the same thing whether you're doing it for the front or the back for a stud eye or an II mounted shock. Thanks for joining us. Hey, leave a comment below. I want to see what you guys are working on, and if you've got the MS2020s in your sight, definitely let's talk about it, because I think it's the best shock by far for any Bronco that's out there. Well, don't forget to subscribe, and we'll catch you next time, guys. Thanks for joining us.